how the marketing environment has changed. On the agency side, almost for a decade, then another decade from the brand side. What do you think is like one evident thing you are observing where the before and after is drastically different?
A lot, yeah. I think a lot has changed. So I think that's a different thesis altogether. But I'll tell you what's changed fundamentally. Okay. What's changed fundamentally is the way that the consumer looks at brands now and the consumer looks at products now. And for a very long period of time, the decision-making tree was extremely linear. So you would go see something, mostly you would see it on a shelf in a local kirana store or an empty store, modern trade store. Sorry, jargons for people who, they'll be like, how do you see something in an empty store? In a modern trade store. Yeah, that's a good one. I think I should use that as a Twitter joke. But in a modern trade store, people would walk in, people would see things, people would buy it. Emerging e-commerce things came. It was mostly just product listing. People started to look at those as a marker. But now if you look at consumer behavior when it comes to purchasing anything, and almost anything, okay? A classic example is a couple of days back, I wanted to refuel my car and I went to a petrol pump and they were doing that ethanol petrol mix. So I actually stopped the car on the side. I first read up on that ethanol mix before there was a line already, okay? And it's not like I have all the time in the world, but I still stopped the car on the side. I said, okay, that looks interesting. I'm going to read up. I read up on it. I wasn't convinced. I went on YouTube. I watched a video. All this potentially has taken me about 7 or 8 minutes. I parked the car on the side. Others have gone in and they have filled whatever they have to. And then I go in and decide, okay, fine. I decide whatever I decided. But if you look at it, I think what's happened is the consumer composition has changed. Okay? The consumer understanding of products have changed. Their expectations of brands have changed. Their journey from a need/want to the final purchase and then coming back has completely changed. It's evolved to a point where I don't think anyone who claims to understand it also understands it really well. Okay, it's very fragmented now. So I think what's changed is the consumer. What's not changed fast enough is marketing. Okay? And I know a lot of my colleagues will hate me for it. But I think what's happened over the last many years is that we have stopped becoming creators and storytellers, and we have become people who are trying to orchestrate things according to what we need them to be, right? Mm-hmm. And it doesn't really work very well. Honestly, it doesn't work very well, okay? So what's happened with marketing over the last many years, and advertising for that matter, is that we have lost the charm and we have lost the magic and we have lost the delight of what used to be classic storytelling. And we have gone down to the depths of data crunching, which is absolutely fine. Nothing's wrong with it. But we have not evolved as much as what the consumer has evolved. Okay? And that's my perspective, and I might be completely wrong. We've got some things right. We have become data richer. We have become a little bit more free of doing the wrong things when it comes to language, communication, content, and so on and so forth. So a lot more sensitivity that's been built into, and cultural sensitivity, which was extremely important, I don't think that we are going to now go back to an era of advertising or marketing where we will, and hopefully we don't, where we will commoditize women to a point where it just becomes absolutely unpalatable. So I'm hoping we don't do stuff like that. Better decisions when it comes to storytelling to some extent, but it's also very culturally nuanced. I think we become a lot more sensitive to the needs of marginalized communities when we are telling stories, and I think that's super important. We have also become far more respectful of the language diversity of this country. So that's a good thing. Have we done all of this with the intent of building it into a playbook? Not as yet. And that needs to be done. But the good thing is that there are younger folks who are coming who will not be borrowing from the past. And a lot of us borrow from the past, right? So, I mean, at a certain stage and age in our lives, we end up borrowing from the past. There'll be a lot of younger folks who will come who will not borrow from the past, who will create interventions which are technologically a lot more inclusive and wider distributed. Every marketeer is going to be a content creator. According to me, that's going to be one fundamental change that will happen. Okay. The reason why I think I have been successful in marketing and in diverse sectors and across different kinds of challenges and different life stages of a company is because I love the art of writing. So now when you build a craft and you hone that craft, so I can write well. Okay. Now, fundamentally, I know that I can write well. I can write well, I can take good photographs, I can think of videos, and I can think of music and so on and so forth. So it goes back to my formative years. Because I can do that, I think I've been more successful than others. Because that's helped me to convince people to take better decisions. Okay, a marketer's job is fundamentally to enable the board, enable the organization, enable consumers, enable your customer service department and your product team and so on and so forth to take better decisions. So you bring a lot of inputs from outside in, you play on those inputs, you create something that is meaningful for yourself and the business and the community that you serve, and you convince a bunch of people through this journey that whatever is being created is the best possible thing, right? That's your job as a marketer. You're there to enable a business to take better decisions. The best way to enable someone to take a good decision is to show them the outcome of that decision. So if you know how to articulate that thought, if you know how to articulate a campaign, if you know how to make it look good, if you know how to write it well, and if you can wear the content creator's hat, if you can wear the orchestrator's hat, then you potentially are going to be able to convince a lot more people to do this much faster, right? So I think the next generation of marketers, the way I look at it, are all going to be content creators. They're going to be fantastic writers. They're going to be designers. They're going to be video people. They're going to be people who are living their life on the social platforms. They are going to come back outside in and they're going to say, your brand or our brand needs this. So the brand is a much more living, organic, open, dynamic. It's not an institution anymore. It's an individual now, right? And I think institutionalized brands fundamentally lack the rigor of experimentation, whether it's communication or product. They also, in some form, lack agility. But individual brands, Heads Up for Tails for me is a very individually driven brand, individually built brand, back on the founder, not institutionalized as a lot of large organizations are. And I've also worked with large organizations to understand how that works. But marketers are fundamentally going to start looking at brand building and performance and growth as individualized spaces and not institutionalized spaces. You need to be a content creator. You need to be a content disruptor. You have to bank on data, but you can't afford for data to decide everything. You have to be very clear about what that data set is telling you. You have to understand technology better than most other people, man. And honestly speaking, let me be fundamentally clear. The more technologically driven a product is, the more humanization it needs.
Right.
Okay? So if you don't understand the technology, you can't humanize it. Okay, so you can't sell tech on the back of tech. No one cares for tech. Okay, tech is fucking irrelevant. Okay, the world doesn't run on technology. The world runs on the outcome of that technology, which is deeply humanized. And I think that's what marketers need to do. Now, whether it's a product or it's technology or it's a service or whatever it is that you're being able to sell, you have to humanize it. You have to individualize it. You have to have that creative aspiration to tell a better story. You have to be able to disrupt that storytelling in some or the other form. You have to have a marketability of the assets that you create. And you can do all that once you yourself are a content creator. You can't be someone who's sitting in an office and say, hey, I know how to sell to people. You can't. You have to be out there, right? And if you're not watching all the right things, then you are not really getting into it. So go out there and please watch Rocky Rani Ki Prem Kahani.